Hi everyone, good evening and welcome to another live stream. And I know it's been a bit of a bonus evening because you had Rebecca Butler hosting a live stream earlier, and now you've got yours truly. So first of all, thanks for sticking with us, folks. And well, we're going to round off the working week. Do we have working weeks anymore? I'm not sure. Anyway, we're going to round off the working week with a great conversation with Ilana Mercer, who's going to come on the stream in a second or so. But before we get to that, if you're watching this on Facebook, like and share it. If you're watching it on YouTube, share, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notifications bell because the naughty people at YouTube sometimes unsubscribe you. So if you do that, that's important. All the links to my social media channels are all below, so you can go and find them there. Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, brand new Tube, which is really good. Also, do make sure you subscribe to my Telegram channel as well. So I'm on Telegram now, so you can find me there. So those are things for you to be doing. Moving on, if you like what we're chatting about and you improve of it, big thumbs up. That helps the algorithms. You see, it's all about the algorithms. I sound so technical, even though I'm not remotely. But anyway, the algorithms like that. And finally, if you enjoyed all the work that we're doing here, please go to altnewsmedia.net/donate and drop whatever you can into the hat to keep the show on the road. And then, as regards Ilana, as you know, she's an author who's published several really interesting books, which I'm making my way through at the moment. And I think me and her will need to have a chat about some of those books. But anyway, those are her books. You can find Ilana's on her, that's her website. So you can go to ilanamercer.com. Go make sure you're following Ilana also on her social media channels as well. Right, that's the preamble out of the way. So without any further ado, drum roll, let's bring on Ilana Mercer. Hi.
Hi, David. Good to see you.
And you as well, Ilana. Always good to see you. So as we have the main topic we're going to talk about tonight is vaccine passports. But before that, Ilana, I wanted to show you an image, and because you're a very fashionable lady. And I wanted to show you something which, I mean, I wonder will this appeal to fashionable ladies. If we can just bring up this image, which amused me. Did you see this, Ilana? I saw this on social media. What do you think?
That's so wrong.
It's so wrong, isn't it? And they've got...
it's akin to wearing a sanitary towel image, or a tampon or something. It's obscene.
Well, what I liked is they've got the blue one, for the medical enthusiasts, and then they've got the black one. Maybe that's for the BLM fraternity. And then I'm not sure what the white one's for. Is that for snowflakes or is that for white supremacists? I don't know.
I thought when they had the Ruth Bader Ginsburg earrings that you could buy on Etsy.com, I thought that was ugly enough, but this takes the cake.
Well, do you know?
It's just ugly. It's not fashionable.
No, it's not. Absolutely right. Yeah, I just saw it before we were coming on air, and I thought I'll let you see it, see what you think of it. But to me, actually, Ilana, it's like part of the cult. There's a cult around this whole mask wearing, vaccine taking. The whole issue is covered in cultism as far as I can see. Oh, by the way, folks, super chats are enabled and super stickers. So if you want to get your question up to Ilana, that's one way to do it. But yeah, it's like a global cult. So they do these things, the crazy earrings and all kinds of other stuff. But what I wanted to chat to you about was, as always, Ilana, your columns are such good feeding ground. They're very fertile grounds for conversation. So obviously, this is the article.
The discrepancy between a demure, quiet woman and the diabolical writing is quite something, I'm told.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Well, one of the things we have in common, Ilana, people think I eat babies alive when, based on some of the things I might write, but I don't actually do that. So and I know exactly what you mean.
Actually, before it went PC and began reviewing the worst books possible, I used to subscribe to the Times Literary Supplement, the British Times Literary Supplement, which was absolutely the best. Beautiful writing, traditional. And one of the writers there, I caught a blog about myself, and it says Mercer eats nails for breakfast.
Yeah. It used to be good, but they went very, very woke. It's unbearable now. The TLS, you couldn't read that stuff now.
David,
But,
it's pure bad. It's just bad,
yeah,
and it was brilliant, from brilliant to bad.
Well, Ilana, one of the things that's been much in the news here in the UK and across in the States, and in fact other places as well, as part of the whole COVID-19 business, has been the emergence of vaccine passports. Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister, has been very, very enthusiastic to bring up to introduce these here. And then there's been a big pushback, and so maybe he's not going to do it. But I know similarly across in the States, I think there's much talk about it. So you penned a really good column, which if we can just bring it up, Ilana, and then we chat about it. So if we can, great title actually. Could vaccine resistors be wackoed? Because there you go.
No, Wacode.
Wacode. You say I do it with the Irish accent. Wacode. Wacode.
Well, Wacode is for Waco. You remember what?
I do indeed. Yeah.
I think Janet Reno, and it was Janet Reno, I believe.
It was.
And under Bill Clinton, as my father, who passed away in December of last year, said, I think it was the 1992, I'm not quite sure when Waco happened.
Yeah.
But he was an old-style liberal, very similar to the gentleman who's mentioned in my column, Glenn Greenwald, who's a civil libertarian, to depart from the authoritarian left. And I remember my father's fist going down on the table and screaming, they killed those people. And he was a Democrat. So that's the difference between old-style liberalism and the new woke authoritarian fascistic liberals that we are dealing with, who are quite keen to usher in this vaccine passport.
Well, that's absolutely right. I see it as complete and utter authoritarianism of the worst kind, and yet, as I said, there is a significant move to make it sound ever so reasonable, Ilana. So what could be more reasonable? Get your vaccines, get your little passport, and then you can go down and have a nice meal in a restaurant, or go to a bar, or go to a sporting event. And because you've had your vaccines and you can prove it, you're keeping other people safe. So what's the problem, Ilana Mercer?
Well, that's a very broad question. You're supposed to go light on me, sir. What is the problem? I mean, that we know that the corporations have been indistinguishable almost from government in limiting freedoms and actually violating the most basic individual rights that issue from Great Britain. RIP, I should say. Yeah. But to trust corporations, restaurants, tech companies, employers with this gateway, this passport, this admission, is to create these draconian guild systems, almost medieval, except even harsher because of the way they can disenfranchise you from making a living, bring the force of the law against you. Once there is a passport and you are non-compliant, the law gives much leeway to proceed with coercion against the civilians. So certainly it's the worst type of thing. And the individual I quote in my column, Glenn Greenwald, who is perhaps the only surviving, he was responsible for facilitating Edward Snowden's intelligence dump on the left, on the right. It was brilliant, and he was behind that. And nobody actually mentions that Glenn Greenwald actually lives in Brazil. I wonder why. He can't come back safely to the US, is my guess. However, he just does mention that obviously it violates the integrity of your
Yeah.
autonomy over your body. It creates an enormous government database with all your health information, expands these powers that are never scaled back again. And this is how we go. And also it impedes, freedom of movement. Where can you go? Will you be financially deplatformed? Will you be able to travel? So on and so forth, unless it's your papers bitter,
Yes, that was a great line. Yeah, but actually so true, isn't it? It is your papers better. It absolutely is, Ilana. And I find it really strange actually that, for example, in Israel, I can't believe what's happening over there because given everything, I can't believe that Netanyahu has been so enthusiastic to produce essentially, your papers better, hasn't it?
Well, that's actually an interesting point, and we obviously think alike, as you keep pointing out, because I've been giving it a lot of thought. Why in Israel? Because Israel, I know that a lot of purist libertarians mock Israel for many of the illiberal structures in that country. However, Israelis are anti-authoritarian. And in fact, what struck me, having grown up in Israel, what struck me when I moved back to South Africa, then Canada, and then the United States was the degree of respect for government that the Anglo-American world has, which is absent in Israel. There is no such thing. In fact, one of the most endearing memories I have of demonstrations in Israel against Sharon, Ariel Sharon, who was beloved, a war hero. There was a placard held up saying, "I know where you live." Can you imagine doing that? You'd be an insurrectionist, wouldn't you?
You would, yeah.
An Israeli protester, probably on the right, maybe on the left, said, "I know where you live, Mr. Prime Minister." That was a direct threat. So that's the sort of thing I can't understand with the compliance in Israel. There is debate about civil liberties, but it also occurred to me, and that's another thing, that when I began covering, or at least commenting on the eagerness to go to war in the United States in 2002 against Iraq, I noticed the cavalier way with human life, which was absent in Israel. When a body bag comes back, in other words, when people start dying in Israel, the sanctity of life is such, and the sanctity of Jewish life, I might say. Yep. It's not a bad thing to be parochial and to be chauvinistic about your own people's lives, because that invariably means you will be less likely to aggress against other people if you fear aggression. But in any case, when they began an invasion of Lebanon and the body bags began coming back, mothers and fathers lined the highway from Haifa to Tel Aviv and stopped that war. So there's this combination. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because I have been thinking on it, but this combination of, it's not an authoritarian society, but this reverence for life and this fear of losing life, I think has compromised people in Israel.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. As you know, we are live tonight, Ilana, no browser. And one of the guys on the stream is talking about the fact that teachers at his daughter's sixth form college are held an assembly telling the 16-year-olds how safe the vaccine is and recommending they all take it. And this is the kind of, thanks for that, Chris, by the way. This is how this is being reinforced, driven into young minds, old minds, all minds. And those of us who hesitate or are reluctant or whatever are being absolutely turned into a minority that they could ultimately move against. Because if you have to have a vaccine passport, but you don't want to have a vaccine, Ilana, what does that mean for your life?
Well, that's why I was in two minds. Do I title and sometimes editors will override titles, but obviously with mine, as you comment, they're often very good. Am I being hyperbolic when I say way code? And then I thought not, because we've seen such centralization of power and such brutality against predominantly small, helpless individuals, not the big retail stores, not the people with clout who've actually gathered power, but government with no qualms has in England as well, has arrested people for simply going to work and implementing the safety precautions, the masking, the distancing, taking the reduced capacity, but going to work has seen people bankrupted, arrested, and brutalized. So I thought I would go with this title because it's not absolutely. Is it a reductio ad absurdum? I don't think so. To imagine maybe people dying over resistance to vaccines. And by the way, to our listener and to our viewer, and thanks to Chris, I don't know if you have any option of seceding from public schools which have become centers for indoctrination. But the call in conservative circles in America is so strong. We need our teachers back. Why don't they want to teach? Well, no, we don't. These are the hothouses for bumper crops of ignoramuses, and for indoctrination. What we're seeing, the Antifa, the Black Lives Matter, the woke culture comes out of this institutionalized rot. So, if COVID has done anything, is conservatives should start thinking how to. I know it's a terrible stress. Face it, we don't want our kids at home. we want them away.
Yeah.
I'm allowed this humor on a British show, but it is time to really secede from public schools.
Although it's interesting, we have Ilana, or we have someone from Hawaii. Donnie Girl, one of our regulars over in Hawaii, and you see what she's saying. Apparently the university there is exploring the idea of forced jabs for students and staff. I mean, that must go against everything you believe in.
The idea of exploring is such a euphemism. Yes. What is there to explore? You're gonna corral people into rooms and explain to them that they will never graduate, will never have a job if they don't do something. I mean, this is a sheer brutal draconian coercion, and so if you still can, just leave that university. It's very difficult, but do I see protests in the universities? I think, somebody made a good comment. I think it was on the UNS Review, Paul Craig Roberts. Oh, my memory. I should rather never cite people honestly. No one cites me honestly. But he made the point about the January 6th protest, not insurrection, is that it was older people had the gumption and had the fire in the fire to do what was done. Not that I'm supporting this, but it was older people who felt liberty, and the younger people, I think, with few exceptions, are really a write-off generation because the left controls the intellectual means of production, if we put it this way. The schools, universities, the printing press, the think tanks, the deep state, the deep tech is all controlled by the left. So I can see universities doing this, and I see them stigmatizing the few conservative or libertarian like myself, students who stand tall for their autonomy. But it's time to act. It really is time to act.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that clearly it's very difficult for them to bring in vaccine passports, and it's probably more complex in the United States, where individual states can actually take their own view in that. Here in the UK, it's more tricky. So you can have England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. They could all do different things, but but they want to try and bring them in, I think. And the age group that they're most keen to bring them in for is it's the young people, Ilana. So it's about, if you've got your vaccine passport, you can go to a concert, you can go to a nightclub.
David, have you
But
thought why the young people, they're least in danger from
I
COVID?
know.
And
Yeah.
you know what's it's really an ugly phenomenon. The older generation is so afraid that they refuse to teach the young people. Of course, they refuse to discipline them. They refuse to impart culture to them. And then they want to vaccinate them, not because they need vaccination, because older generations, including the COVID health industry, at least the front people for the COVID health industry, have you noticed they're all female? They're all
Yes.
female. And if they're not, they are female just with a Y chromosome. But
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
noticed that they want to force this on young people, even babies, without any long-term studies, showing this to be safe, and it clearly isn't always safe in aggregate. So they want to force this on young people simply to shield older people, and there's something very cowardly about that,
But I think there's something strange about the fact that here in the UK, the older age cohort, that demographic, they've had one vaccine, they've had two vaccines, so they are theoretically protected. And the younger age cohort, which we're talking about, the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds, maybe, even actually, I just read Ilana before we came on air as well. I see that in the UK, they've just given permission for pregnant women to get the vaccine, right? So why are they so hell-bent to get the age groups which do not have a significant issue with COVID-19? Why do they want them injected?
I truly think this is a cowardly move. Older people, especially the female-run health industry, at least the front people. I'm sure there are. What are we allowed to say on the show? I'm sure there are men that look like you, David, hard at work, and like Jed, hard at work in the laboratories devising these potions. But the front people, because of quotas and so on and so forth, are all female, and females are very nervous and tend to exaggerate risk and want everything very safe. I've noticed that there's really a thread. I'm not sure it's the same with in your media and on your television stations, but it's female dominated, very afraid. Everyone has to be vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's the only way we will get back to normal. We don't want any risk. Now, I'm not a COVID denier. In fact, I've raised the ire of my conservative and libertarian colleagues in the sense that I do believe it's an awful pandemic, and that certain people are gravely at risk for it.
Yep.
And that the excess deaths are real. I'm not a COVID denier at all, but I'm a rational, analytical individual. That's what I do. I deduce, I analyze, and the rationale for vaccination en masse is not there for me. I certainly, I've just taken the shingles vaccination. I think they're marvelous. They're well researched and they're well worth it. Yeah. But I don't take the flu vaccination because even my very conventional doctor says it only has 40 or 30% efficacy.
Right.
And I will not take, I'm not ruling out a COVID vaccine if there is any chance that it will not be an annual affair, that it will be something more permanent. But it is my impression, and this column actually came out a little before the admission that, well, it might last until the next mutation.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So that's my position, and I think it's rational. And terms like vaccine hesitancy and resistors or anti-vaxxers are just meant to, marginalize critical thinking. Oh, and by the way, David, I often blog, and thanks for having all my links down there. And I found a research paper, peer-reviewed, very respectable, from 2018, because I'd Googled questions about messenger RNA technology. And
Yeah.
I found it all there, all the side effects. Edema was one, an a self-cannibalizing immune system if you give it to people who have antibodies, and strokes, all documented and legitimately and calmly discussed. And another thing, which to me was explosive in this peer-reviewed paper that I link on my blog, was the fact that the longevity of the immunity protection was not at all established, was in fact, it's very iffy. So these things were discussed in serious scientific circles before COVID. And now people say, well, they know all this. Fauci knows all this. He's just silent and a liar. No, he's stupid.
Well, actually, again, Chris asked the question here. He says, David, ask Ilana about Fauci finally getting some pushback in the Senate yesterday. Did you see that? He got some, but he did get I think, I can't remember the name of the senator who was having a real good ding dong at him. But yeah, Fauci is. We probably can't speak on this channel overly about Fauci because he's a protected specimen. But but the thing is, in your column, like you started off in the column by saying the very obvious thing that viruses mutate. Obviously, this is what happens. This is the way that it operates, and we know that the COVID virus, the original Chinese one, I think I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. The Chinese one has mutated and it will mutate. So it looks like we're being set up where everyone's going to be offered their annual COVID jab. Now, I'm like you. I see this the same as you. If people want to take that, Ilana, it's like, fine, no problem. But don't presume that I'm going to take it necessarily. And certainly don't punish me for having the temerity to exercise free choice. And this is where I feel, some of us are going to be put in a very difficult position because the way that some of the politicians want to do this, they want to remove that free choice.
Yeah, and you mentioned that our viewer was impressed by anything happening in one of our chambers, and I simply ignore that because this is posturing mainly. I think I've said that, we discussed this before.
Yeah.
We've seen no results. They come on television and, Joe Howley has this initiative against deep tech, and the other guy questioned Fauci. Well, to me, it's having covered, or not covered, or at least commented on American politics since 2001. I've seen absolutely no change. And in fact, in my most recent column about immigration, I quote one of my columns going back to 2006, and they are making the same points they're making today. Nothing has changed, at least. The gains made by conservatives are minimal. We can give them the presidency. We've given them the upper and lower chambers. They controlled the gubernatorial scene.
Yeah.
And I've seen no advancement, only erosion and decay of liberty. So am I impressed that someone is going to get one of the senators or congressmen people is going to get on Tucker Carlson Live or is going to get a book deal because he went against Fauci? I don't know. I've stopped watching those people for salvation.
You see, again, this is where we are so alike. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's political theater. It's done for the cameras. It's clickbait.
Exactly.
There's no substance here. It was actually, I just say it was Senator Jim Jordan, I think Chris says, was and he did a theatrical piece, but actually, if to quote Shakespeare, sound and fury signifying nothing strikes me as maybe how it is.
And sometimes they speak about the awfulness of Democrats, and we can't dispute that, but I heard snippets of is it Congressman or Senator Jordan? I heard snippets, and if anything, I guess I being can we say this, a defender of Western culture,
Yep.
He was so rude. It's just okay. Be rude to Fauci. You're a hero, not to me. I thought he made points, but points that have been made, they were hackneyed, they were cliche, and. So what? We'll see no advantage to us. I don't think we'll have a vaccine passport. At least I hope not. But we've seen the power of deep tech. We've seen the power of the woke corporations weighing in on everything now. So I fully expect that corporations will demand that of workers. And government won't step in to enforce civil rights liberties or the Civil Rights Act. So they don't impress me much.
I think for me, Ilana, the thing is that government here is so calculating, not necessarily cowardly, calculating that they want to use private business, to use coercion to get the result that they want. But there's been a big pushback here in the UK. It surprised me, actually, and it's good to see. But one of the real nasty stings in the tail is that if you don't enforce a vaccine passport, then that means that social distancing inside your venue has to be maintained. If social distancing is maintained, you can't hit the level of occupancy or tables, whatever, so, to make a profit. So it's really malevolent the way they're doing. They're forcing business. Yeah, make a choice. Take the vaccine passport if you want, or go bust. It's not much of a choice, is it?
And notice, David, they're not forcing this on the big, powerful, politically, not at least not in America. They're not forcing this on the big, powerful retail stores. The big box stores are not being told. I haven't seen capacity in Target or in Costco. Yeah. Maybe there is, but I haven't seen that. I don't object to the masking. I've never been militantly anti that. And in fact, on March 5, I discussed the merits of the N95 purely logically. And that was the time that Fauci was saying, masks, nothing. Everybody said that he was saying that because he was trying to make sure that all the PPE goes to healthcare workers and not to individuals. But I maintain he's stupid. He pretty much just didn't know stuff. And so March 5, I did support simple precautions, not reduced capacity, but simple, sensible hygiene and et cetera, and keep everything open. So I have no objection against these reasonable, but when they say you can increase capacity and drop the masks and the hygiene when you have a vaccine, and then the vaccine we know is not going to last for long, and the immunity is it could be very limited. It's just willy-nilly. It's ad hoc. Make it up as you go. And so it is time for citizenry to be sensible and, stand up. Maybe not in an extreme way so that just, you throw away masks, you throw away distancing. Be sensible, but stand up for being open and going to business.
Yeah, I think, and again, you touched on it earlier, Ilana, the whole thing about, for example, I've had vaccines, my kids have had vaccines. I am by no means anti-vax, but I do it on the basis of like yourself, trying to understand, is the vaccine, do I feel it safe? Is it efficacious? If it does those ticks, then I've got no issues with that. But again, as you point out in your column, these are more experimental type vaccines. So it's people can have understandable hesitation and maybe don't want to take it. And those people should be respected. Vaccine passports do not respect those people.
But David, they are entirely experimental. There is no long-term studies. Not one ego in an anchor's chair is asked, where are the long-term studies? There aren't, because they are simply too new. And at least in our country, they have been issued under emergency authorization, not that I love the FDA, but not under FDA approval. The normal process of vaccine experimentation and approval is about 15 years. So this is why I had no problem taking the shingles vaccine and other vaccines, but this one has had a few months. So they are papering over the fact that it doesn't have good research behind it, in my opinion. it doesn't have the long-term research behind it. They're ignoring all the pitfalls of, they're giving it to people that have natural immunity. They're not screening for immunity.
Yeah.
So you have a self-cannibalizing immune system. And you have things like strokes. Someone I love dearly, super fit person, totally out of the risk group, had a stroke. So when you know people that have strokes pursuant to the vaccine, this is not an outlier. This is part of the thing. And in addition to the emergency authorization decree under which these big pharma are operating, it is also, the emphasis is great, and you can go. There are links in the column to liability from lawsuits. There is an immunity clause, so there is no incentive to get it absolutely right. Now, I'm not disputing that they may try their best, but I think there's a lot of loopholes that people will, they say 6 women in America young women had strokes, and what was the number? Was it among 1 million or 6 million? And that's nothing.
6 million, I think it was. It was a huge.
6 million?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it's you, it matters, right?
That's right.
And that's the point of the column, was that we have a utilitarian ethos. In other words, which is the Benthamite. Jerry Bentham was a utilitarian, the first philosopher who pretty much credits utilitarianism is credit to him. And that's a policy that comes from central planning and from an all-knowing overlord that says the greatest benefit for the greatest number of people, and never mind what falls between the chairs, and the Blackstonian individual-based view, which is what our country was founded on, and comes from William Blackstone, author of the commentaries, I believe. The great William Blackstone means that individual rights are preeminent, not legislation is not there for the greatest good, never mind the violation of individual rights. And this is the compromise we're seeing. Individual rights by this, have gone by the wayside.
And that's, Ilana, in summary, why your columns are so enthralling and such a must read, because that is absolutely, I know that's the point of your column, and it's also, it sums it up perfectly. We can't sacrifice, the individual to the needs of the many. We just can't go down that road whatsoever. But Ilana, we have sadly.
No, one more thing. Think about what statistics are. Statistics are, if you have 1 foot in the fire and 1 in ice, on average, you're warm, right? I mean, that's pretty much the logic of it. So if you fall in among those who die of these side effects, and they are given to healthy people, remember, this is not a last-ditch attempt to save a life. They're given to healthy people. Then it really matters, these side effects and this, this limited amount of research and lack of liability for those who produce them.
Just to finish with, although just on that, for quite a few years, I was very friendly with some people working at a high level in some big pharmaceutical companies in Ireland, and I was very friendly with them, and we used to sit and talk about things, and it was so obvious, that the lifespan of, in terms of the new product development and the whole process of getting a new drug to market did take that 5, 10, 15-year period, and had to be rigorous, and even then, sometimes there were nasty surprises. So, to a logical mind, you just have to think to yourself, well, if that's kind of like standard, and there's good reasons for that being standard, that's been just thrown to one side, and not only that, but then what's being brought out is being essentially given to anything that moves. I mean, if they could get it into 6-month-old babies, I think they would do, Ilana, which is...
Well, here, let's have parents step forward and protect their children, We keep seeing the sniveling and the weakness. There's a lot of heroism, and people that are heroic and open their stores and pull their kids out of these toxic indoctrination centers that are schools. But there's also a lot of compliance and crying. I see women saying, well, I was in the room when what's his name abused my child. Well, I'm sorry, that's your fault. So don't allow your babies to be vaccinated. It's simple. You still are the parent of the child and the authority is with you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Ilana, we've come to the end of we've actually, or a lot of time span has gone by too quickly. And unfortunately, there's about a million things we could talk about, but I don't want to overrun. So look, it's such a pleasure to have you on the stream. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Thanks everyone. So this is a live stream, Ilana. So it was fine. No issues on the live stream. They're a good bunch of people, and they all are very respectful. So I think
looking forward to next week.
Yeah, well, there's so much we could talk about. We could talk about the U.S. troops coming out of Afghanistan. There's so much we could talk about, and how conservatives have reacted to that. There's lots of stuff, but yeah. So I think your video is just freezing a wee bit. So I'll wrap it up. Thanks again to Ilana. Thank you, folks, for being on the stream with me at this time on a Friday night here in the UK. And I'll catch up with you on the next live stream, which will be Monday night at 8 o'clock. That's it from me. Good night.